All right, this is a category of plants that many of you have not really had exposure to, and I really think that it would be beneficial to you to learn something about Florida native plants because they are very, very useful, and a lot of them are very, very beautiful. These plants are just wonderful here. Marlborough is a very fine ornamental plant. It's beautiful. It's got fragrant white flowers, followed by beautiful shiny black fruit that the birds adore, and we can eat the fruit.
Really?
Yeah. Now, the fruit is not that big, and it's got a seed in it, but one of my best plant books says that species could be selected out over time to create a new dooryard fruit crop, a dooryard fruit plant species.
How large is the fruit? Grape?
No, not that
Smaller.
big. Smaller.
Simpson
Like
Simpson
elderberry.
Slobber?
Yeah, similar to that.
Okay.
Maybe a little smaller than Simpson Slobber, right. This is a picture of the flowers and the leaves.
Okay.
It's really beautiful, and its native habitat is in the shade. So, but it's very adaptable. I've planted some in the sun, and they have a little time of it at first, but they adapt. They're very adaptable. They tend to be somewhat upright and narrow. But it's a very, very pretty plant. Can be used in a formal garden.
Well, that brings up something I'd like to talk about. When you're getting into these types of plants, you gotta consider what mature growth is,
Absolutely.
because they can start taking over.
Well, any plant you should consider the
Yeah,
mature.
well, the ones we talked about, so far have been kind of small and stay on the
Well, the
ground and
fruit trees.
stuff like that, yeah. Well, fruit trees, yeah.
Yeah.
But some of these things, like firebush, gets sizable.
Oh, yes.
Well, that's a good point. Whenever you're shopping for plants or considering plants, you should try to get some kind of read on the ultimate size. I mean, because otherwise, if you plant something that doesn't have the headroom that it needs, you're gonna end up, having to cut it regularly.
Mhm.
Or if it spreads wider than you want it to spread, if you plant it near a walkway, you've got either a lot of maintenance or you're gonna have to remove the plant, so definitely. Firebush I have fairly close to my front door. It's an absolutely gorgeous plant. It's got a soft leaf, but it is a evergreen. It's susceptible to frost damage, but I don't think that's a problem right now here,
No.
It was a few years ago. But it flowers beautifully, and then it has black fruit that the birds will eat. Hummingbirds will come to the flowers
I've
because
seen
it's a tubular red flower which attracts hummingbirds. So it has those three functions, the wildlife and beauty, and that's about it. But it'll grow 10 feet high and about 10 feet across.
You planted two varieties
Yeah, there's
at
two
our
different.
house.
There are two different ones.
Yeah.
There's a Mexican one, a dwarf
It's got some
one.
orange in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're mixed up in the trade. I didn't deliberately plant two different
That's
species.
okay.
Yeah.
I see
But
'em.
I'm constantly getting fooled by that. You buy what you think is the native, and it's not the native, it's the Mexican one. But it's not a bad plant.
No, it's a nice plant.
Yellow necklace pod is a nitrogen fixer. It's a Sephora genus, and it'll fix nitrogen. Beautiful shrub with silvery velvety leaves. It'll grow up to 8 feet tall or so, with these really pretty flowers here that'll attract hummingbirds. And it gets like a seed pod that looks like a necklace, and that's where it gets its name. It's very, very drought tolerant. It grows Honeymoon Island all over the place. So it's a coastal plant. I've planted some of these in a little food forest at the Faith House, and they're about big enough to start chopping them and dropping them, using them for mulch.
Can you plant them from seed?
Sure. As a matter of fact, once you get the main plant established, it seeds a lot. You get a lot of seedlings coming up under it. But all three plants are quite pretty. All right, eastern red cedar is a native plant, and that's the fruit on the female. It comes separate sex. Great plant if you want a windbreak or a screen. Very tough plant. It'll grow, 20 feet tall or so. And the birds love to hide in it. It's a great cover for birds, and they go for the fruit too. And I think these are the berries that they make gin out of, right?
That's
Yeah. Beautyberry is a nice shrub. It's deciduous, meaning it loses its leaves in the wintertime. And it has these fabulous colored, unique berries in the fall.
But they're not edible, right?
Yes.
You can make
You can make jellies and jams from them. They make very
And
good
teas.
jellies and jams.
Yeah.
And teas.
And it gets to be a darn big shrub.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can
My
cut
neighbor
it.
has one, the berries are in
Oh, yeah,
little
the
clusters
clusters.
along the
Yes.
Yeah,
Up there.
absolutely.
You can cut it to the ground every year and it'll
And
grow
it'll
back.
come right back.
By the way, that flower arrangement back there on the
Yeah.
table is yard waste from our yard.
Oh my God.
That was going to the compost, and Neil brought it in here in a bucket, and Judy made a flower arrangement from it. So
Wow.
there's
Good.
beautyberry and roselle
Firebush.
hibiscus and firebush.
Muley
and-
grass,
And muley
And
grass.
what?
Nice.
Yeah,
muley grass,
Nice.
And that's been there a whole week, right?
yeah, it's
wow.
been there almost a week.
I guarantee you your roselle is rooted.
Yeah,
It keeps
everybody can
flowering,
just go
yeah.
over and
That's
take a
just
hike
amazing
with
that
it.
every
That's
day
the
there's
whole
more
point, it's
flowers
rooting
on
the
it.
seed.
As you
Plant the
leave,
seed
please
in
take
March.
one, right?
And
Here's a beautiful
We have to
native
plant
plant that
seeds
grows
after.
in the shade, so if
But
you
there
have
might be some of the
a
carols.
shade issue and you can't grow anything else that might give you some food.
Those got larger than I ever expected.
Yeah, they get 8, 9 feet or so. Yeah.
I didn't,
And those are what else?
They produce fruit that the birds like,
yeah, lots of them.
but it's not for human consumption. But it's in the gardenia family, it has a very similar leaf to a gardenia, so it's
Very
very
shiny.
pretty and shiny. So
Now,
if you
can
need
you
it,
cut things like that back too?
sure,
Yeah.
okay.
Promotes more growth.
Trees in the front of my house, this is the weeping form, there's also an upright form. The weeping form gets bigger, it gets 25 feet or so. The upright form will get about 12 feet, but in the years we had some cold in the wintertime, the following fall,
Oh, yeah.
the fruit set on these plants was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Anybody that came to my house for 4 months,
Absolutely.
the first question you'd always ask, what are those plants? I could predict it when they got out of the car. And it's first-rate bird food, just absolutely first-rate. And the Indians used to make drinks out of this. You can make a tea because the leaves have caffeine in it. And the Indians would use it ceremonially, or they'd make a purgative out of it. But you can just make, huh?
Let's be careful.
That's right.
But you can just make a tea out of it. So that's a very useful plant for people and for wildlife. Simpson Slobber is one of my favorite. I have them on the east side of my driveway where I only have 3 feet of room between the driveway and the boundary. So it grows rather upright, but the plant is beautiful, has beautiful bark, exfoliates, nice foliage, white powder puff fragrant flowers followed by beautiful orange-red fruit that the birds love, and we can eat them. You know, you can't ask a plant to do any more than that. That's just total multifunctional as far as I'm concerned. That's like Marlborough there, you know? Same thing, it does everything you could ask it to do, except maybe fix nitrogen.
Pull weeds.
Well,